"13" becomes California's lucky number in 1978. For Panama, the lucky number is 2000. President Carter signs documents which will turn the canal over to Panamanians in that year.
Our two governments agree to maintain the neutrality and security of the canal. At the same time, we reaffirm our commitment to honor national sovereignty and the principle of non-intervention.
In New York, there are 8 million stories and almost as many dogs. At Camp David, the contractual road to peace. In Southeast Asia, 5,000 a month take to the boats, risking death for a new life. Jim Jones in Guyana makes Jonestown infamous. 911 dead. Aldo Moro, Italy's leading politician, is kidnapped and murdered by the Red Brigade when the government refuses to negotiate. Thousands mourn his death. And the Catholic Church has its first non-Italian pope in 4.5 centuries. Bless you, 1978. Man's best friend. Sometimes a boy's, too. They're so cute and cuddly, those in the pet shop. But what of the others? Of New York's estimated 1,100,000 dogs, more than 400,000 are strays, neglected, underfed, diseased. During the 60s and early 70s, as apartment break-ins skyrocketed, it seemed everyone had or was buying watchdogs. It got to the point there was hardly a safe spot to put your foot on the sidewalk, and New York passed its so-called pooper-scooper law, with heavy penalties for violators. For many, the extra care made the pet expendable, and almost immediately, the number of strays increased dramatically. The dog catchers, in New York, employees of the ASPCA, are frantic. Sometimes more frantic than skillful. The kids think it's all fun, but more kids are bitten by dogs each year than suffer from all childhood diseases combined. Still, the myth of the lovable dog as child protector lives on. What's a boy without a dog? And vice versa. In a city with enormous financial problems, it costs New York $145,000 a month to pick up strays and put them away. The trick is to catch the female. The males aren't smart enough to know when to give up the chase. Well, the rest will be easy. Those male dogs are pre-sentenced to death at the dog pound. Where are the pet owners now? Even the vet finds the situation impossible.
A little bit scared. Okay, let's relax. That's good. This is not a job that I enjoy at all. It ruins my whole day for me. It's a necessity, but I wish it weren't my responsibility. I don't want to see them running loose, spreading disease, or biting young children, or foraging in the garbage cans in an attempt to ward off starvation. I think this is a much less painful way to die than to be crushed under the wheels of a car or to die a slow death of starvation.
Well, So long, Rover. Maybe if you'd just grown up in the country. Ah, yes, the country. The wild. The only fit place for beast or man. Out here at home on the range, where there aren't hardly any cloudy skies at all. And the buffalo roam, and the deer, and the antelope play. Hey, what's that? That, my friend, is an RV, a recreational vehicle, the new home on the range. There are about 650,000 motorhomes in North America, and millions more trailers.
This is where the first explorers saw the valley from when they came in 1851. As you're enjoying the view here this morning, try and forget about people and traffic. Look out, and there really is almost no sign of man's presence in Yosemite Valley. I think it's a real tribute to the National Park Service, in a park that gets almost 3 million visitors a year, that we can enjoy a view today, so similar to the one that the first explorers got up there.
Large sausage, 109.
When you look out there, it just don't. Your first impression is it's not real, and it still don't look real. I can look up looking at it right now, and it don't look real. Look like I'm looking like you take one of them old times telescopes that you look through. Now that's what way it looks. Looks like 3D. It just don't look. It just don't look real.
The rocks are eternal. The trees are the same, and it just is all. It's all there, always. I think the fun of camping is being with all kinds of people, and just kind of enjoying what's beside you. They're people from all different countries and states, and they take pleasure in different parts of the camping, and you kind of take your pleasure where you are and whatever you want to do. If it's just a matter of sitting here kicking back, or in their case, they might want to play music from their country, or it's just being part of a kind of a whole mass of people enjoying something you enjoy.
Well, I'm a meat cutter for Safeway.
Is the paper burn around the outside anyway?
My normal day is get up in the morning, go in there and cut the meat, and dress and so forth and so on. You're on a time schedule, a certain time to be there. You got to have a certain amount of production done during the day. You have a lunch hour at a certain time. You get off at a certain time. Well, it's strictly routine and under this pressure. And over here, you just go to bed when you want. And the everyday cares and chores are completely eliminated.
What's that on your mark? Where's the barb?
Boy.
So, now a lot of people really get off on this stuff, and I don't. I think it's silly, because what we're supposed to be doing is getting back to nature, and I haven't even looked at the trees. I have to keep looking up at the rocks to remind myself that I'm not just out in my backyard doing without my dishwasher and my refrigerator. Last time I went camping, I went in the kitchen and kissed the floor. I kissed the refrigerator. I kissed the stove. I couldn't believe that I was actually back in civilization. And everybody says, well, we're getting out away from people. Well, everywhere around you, you're back in people, You wake up in the morning, as soon as the first person gets up, everybody's up. See where it's so great.
At home or on the road, someone's got to fix the meals and do the dishes. And then there's the laundry. It's so quiet in the middle of the night. You can even hear the birds. If the bikers aren't going by. Is it for the birds? Ask Mom what she's thinking when she hears, "Hey, the pancakes are cold." Or consider, when you're the 927th person to use the camp's public facilities, your hairdresser's back home, and the baby? Damn nuisance trying to heat a bottle over an open fire. Ah, but shucks, we just don't have this kind of fun back home. The tanks of the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong roll into Saigon in April 1975, driving the invaders from the land after decades of foreign occupation and leaving the Vietnamese free to settle their differences in whatever manner they see fit. As the Americans leave, the most influential South Vietnamese escape, but many others who want to go are left behind. For months, refugees stream across the borders and into Thailand. Most are shuttled on, many to the United States and France, the Western nations with closest ties to Indochina. Gradually, the new government takes a firmer grip on the borders, and the overland escape route is tightly sealed. The only exit now, the risk-laden seas. 10,000 have died trying to escape, drowned or starved, or by exposure to the elements, killed or raped by pirates.
We met some big ships, though. We wanted to get help from them, but they did not pay any attention. What we hoped was only that they stopped and gave us some food. We did not expect that they would take us up to their ship, but they just passed by and did not even take a look, even very close, you see.
Some 5,000 take to the boats each month by mid-1978. It's 744 miles to Thailand, but as the number of refugees increases, charity wears thin, and Thailand begins forcing boatloads of homeless back to sea. Some turn to the Philippines, more than 600 miles on a killing ocean. Others go south, past the cold shoulders of Singapore and Malaysia, to Australia, an incredible voyage of 3,000 miles. Thai, a former South Vietnamese soldier, feels like a stranger in the new Vietnam. After the war, he's put through what the government calls re-education, and he calls brainwashing. Then he is sent home to the countryside, forbidden to hold a regular job, and becomes an extra helper on his father's tiny farm at Nha Trang. Alarmed by reports of fellow soldiers being worked to death at remote forced labor camps, Thai decides to run for it, to join the boat people. Plans are made in total secrecy. A group of 44 conspirators is formed. Only those strong enough to have a chance of surviving the voyage are included. Working stealthily, usually at night, they spend months gathering money, dried food, contraband gasoline. In exchange for fuel and food, a fisherman agrees to provide the boat. Fishermen find escape attractive when they are forced to sell their catch to the government at low, controlled prices. What chance does Thai have of escaping by boat to Manila?
If the government know their plan to escape from country, the 44 people will be die.
The plan is made. A scout team surveys the scene. Shore roads and coastal waters are heavily patrolled. The seas of Indochina kill quickly and routinely. Typhoons are common. But Thai makes it. The journey to Manila is one he'll never forget.
Oh, very rough. Very rough. Sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes right and left. Many people get sick.
What did you think about on the boat?
I think we can die because my boat very small. I think this country, this new country, I have a freedom, and I have a future.
The flag flying. Must be real patriots here. Yes, there are, but not in the usual sense. We have here a little band of screwballs who call themselves the National Socialist Party of America. In 1978, Nazi sympathizers number an estimated 1,200 in North America. Their hero is Loony Adolf. Their zeal is directed at blacks more than Jews, but they're willing to hate almost anyone if given half a chance. The place is Skokie, Illinois, 70,000 people, half of them Jews. 10% of them survivors of Adolf's reign of terror in the Germany of the 1930s. The hate master is Frank Collin, whose father, believe it or not, was a Jewish survivor of Dachau.
I made an application to use a park in the middle of Skokie, Illinois, which has a 49% Jewish population, knowing all the while that they would scream the loudest. The rally permit was denied me on the exact same grounds that the Chicago Park District had. And
that didn't surprise you that a town that was 49% Jewish would be upset that
oh no, I had calculated that they would be upset. I had calculated on their hystericism.
Albert Rosen of the Anti-Defamation League.
The village alleges that these people threatening come to Skokie wearing the regalia, the paraphernalia of the Nazis, including the swastika, and coming and rubbing this in under the noses of persons who lived for years under the threat of annihilation. These people, when they see this demonstration, perforce will have to respond.
To wave a swastika here in Skokie, it means to look for trouble and violence. Skokie is not just a town.
Saul Goldstein has lived in Skokie for 18 years. He is a survivor of the concentration camps, who is suing to prevent Collin's march. He says he's had enough of Nazis in his lifetime.
It's a town that has 10% of its population survivors of the Holocaust. To come here in my backyard and to remind me what happened, it is much more that I could take it.
Ironic, isn't it, that your lawyer, the man who's trying to get you this right to free speech, is a Jew?
Oh, that's perfect, because I have always been against the American Civil Liberties Union's Marxist policies. I'm against the courts for pushing integration on our people.
But you're using the courts to get...
Yes, I am. I'm using these different groups to destroy each other, see. This is a small group, very small group, hasn't got much power in itself, except here. This is where all the power lies, and our willpower. And I'm using these different groups to fight each other, to tear the system apart. I'm using Jew money to defeat the Jew system. Beautiful. Just perfect. What a dream.
I don't particularly care for the clients, and I could not feel more strongly an antagonism toward their views. But the question here is really far beyond their particular views. The question is, what kind of a First Amendment was America going to have? And the kinds of challenges that were being proposed would have watered it down in such a way that it would have been unrecognizable.
Collin and his troopers do, of course, stir up a storm. The people of Skokie are divided.
I don't believe that it's a First Amendment right for the Nazis to march in Skokie. As a matter of fact, I resigned from the ACLU. I'm one of those who did not renew his membership over that issue.
Oh, yeah. They should be allowed to march through Skokie.
They definitely should be.
Allowed?
Yes, allowed to, because that's our Constitution. The freedom of speech, the freedom to be able to express your opinion.
I guess I have a conflict with myself. I think that in the United States, people have a right to free expression.
Skokie is heavily populated by Jewish people, and they're against Jewish people, so they're coming here for that reason, just to intimidate everybody.
I think they should be allowed to march, and I don't think anybody in Skokie should come out of their homes. Just let them do their marching and stay indoors when they march.
I just think that people are going to be very angry and don't want to have to deal with that. So I think a lot of people are going to be fighting. I don't think it's going to be peaceful. The best thing that could happen is if people would just leave them alone and let them walk and have their right to speak out and leave it at that, and then just let it go away. But that won't happen.
I think the publicity will be more in their favor if they'll be able to say, it is the same Jews as before World War II. They are afraid, they are scared, They went to their homes as they heard we were coming. They locked up the doors. They pulled out the drapes. They went to the basement. They are afraid. They ran like mice. Next step will be theirs. Let's go again. The streets are free for us. Let's go to the temple. And so on. It cannot be done this way.
The U.S. Supreme Court okays the Skokie March, but Colin and his 25 followers hold the demonstration in downtown Chicago. History is made in November 1977 when Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, pays his social call on Menachem Begin, the prime minister of Israel. Sadat braves the strong objections of other Arab countries, but he has no regrets. After this meeting, he says, "We like each other." Everywhere he goes on that first visit, Sadat is welcomed. Among the crowds are mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters of Israelis who have been killed by Egyptians in the wars. And even they cheer Sadat. At the War Memorial for the Israeli dead, Sadat lays a wreath. Later, he tells the Israeli parliament, "We of the oldest nation in the Middle East welcome you, the newest, among us, with all security and safety."
Let us raise the slogan, "No war and security."
We are mortals, and when we depart, our nations will live forever. And we are going to do our utmost to make sure that our nations will live forever in peace.
As Sadat leaves, Begin says the key word now is continuation. That is supposed to come at their meeting in Egypt, at Sadat's house in Ismailia. They are there to draft guidelines for peace negotiations. They fail then, and though they agree to negotiate further, as the months drag on, many fear the threads of goodwill have come unraveled. In September 1978, President Carter invites them to Camp David. By then, they've already been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 13 days of intense negotiating, they forge an agreement no one had thought possible. They now have a framework for settlement of the problem of the West Bank, and they agree that a full peace treaty will be signed within 3 months. It's one of the few joyous resolutions of conflict in the world's history. No one is vanquished. All, in a way, are victors. The Vatican elects 2 popes in 1978, the successors to Paul VI, who'd reigned for 15 of the most turbulent years in modern church history. The name John Paul, chosen by his successors, is an attempt to bridge the gap between 2 factions in the church, those who favored Pope John's liberalism and those who aligned with the traditional views of Pope Paul. The sudden death of John Paul I gave Catholicism its first non-Italian pope in 4.5 centuries, the Polish Cardinal Karol Wojtyła. The Catholic world rejoices and accepts his blessing. But many are waiting to hear what he will say in the coming months about such things as birth control and the right of clerics to marry. As a cardinal, he spoke of the role of the church in Poland.
Polish church, the church in Poland is 1,000 years old, and the United States only 200 years. And different political, economical systems also. I could say, so I said so many times in the United States, that the church in Poland is living its own life. That is very important.
This is a dream come true that we could never thought of. I never thought it would come true. We are very proud. I'm sure many of our Polish Americans are proud of him being his Pope.
I'm really happy right now. Really happy. I'm proud myself.
I would say a most charming personality, a very warm man, gentle, kind, but firm.
You think he'll make a strong pope?
I think very much so, because he went through the grind himself from his earliest years, studied, worked in the foundry, and did It was a bit of an extra too.
Are you proud to have a Polish Pope?
First of all, it's not by choice. It's what God made me, and God made a Pope for the world.
We go out to proclaim a good news. The good news is the news of Jesus Christ, who came to this world to proclaim the kingdom of heaven. He said, as my Father sent me, so I'm sending you.
In this decade, there's been an eruption of cult and fundamentalist religions, from born-again Christians to Jesus freaks, to Western versions of beliefs that have flourished for centuries in Asia.
And that Jesus saves. We speak to the lost sheep. We speak to the children of God who went from his Father.
I was involved with things that most people are involved these days, which means drugs, Oriental philosophies, mysticism, magic, occult. I studied heavily for about 7-8 years, searching for truth. Then one day my very close friend became a Christian by reading a Bible out in the bush. He's kind of convinced me that there's something in Christianity I must look into. So I started to study Bible for about a year. Then on 20th of December, God came into my life. Not only my head, as he was in before, but also my heart and my soul. And he fundamentally changed my life.
A love which is given to us from God. We'll make things straight with God.
I think you're kind of dreamers, sort of.
If they feel it and they believe it, I think it's just great.
It's fine if they're doing their own thing. You know, it's a little noisy.
You are forgiven. Only you have to come to that realization, to believe that you have been forgiven, and ask him for forgiveness. And when you ask him for forgiveness, he'll forgive you, because that's why he died. He doesn't just go around throwing his life away.
Starting in university, really, I got into drugs, I got into the drug scene. And everything that I could lay my hands on and my eyes on, I got into. Buddhism, Hare Krishna, and all these other things. I got into numerology, I got into palmistry, and astrology. Within me, there was this groaning, I wasn't really happy. There was no question in my mind that I was searching for the way to go. So I was standing on the corner in Vancouver one day. A guy came up to me and he said, Christ is coming. Now where do you want to go? You want to go to heaven? Or you want to go to hell? And this blew my mind.
Yes, many minds are blown. Some by the pressures of change, as life becomes more complex. Some by the disciplinary demands of the cults. Many parents, worried about their children, turn to a new phenomenon, deprogramming, yet wondering if that is right. And then comes the weirdest cult event of all time. Jim Jones, an only child, grew up in Lynn, Indiana, a town whose major industry is making caskets. Childhood friends recall his inviting them to witness the bizarre funeral ceremonies he staged for small animals. Some said the disappearance of neighborhood pets was a problem back then. He's a minister in Indiana and California, then moves his operation to Guyana, naming his commune with characteristic lack of modesty, Jonestown. Jim Jones had thoughts of himself as a reincarnation of Jesus. Now he has decided he is God. There are letters from Jonestown to friends and relatives, horror stories about forced homosexual and heterosexual sex. A California congressman decides to go to Guyana to have a look. NBC correspondent Don Harris goes with him.
You're convinced that Jim Jones is a good man?
Definitely. I should say so. Yes. I'm 27 years old, black, free, and I make my own choices. And I definitely think Jim Jones is a beautiful, he's got more character than I've ever seen out of anyone. And I respect him very, very much.
On November 17th, with several journalists and aides, Representative Leo Ryan arrives to talk with the people. A few slip notes to Ryan, saying they want to leave. He tells them of his talk with a Guyanese official.
But his general attitude about this whole thing, at least to me, was that it's a matter from now on between the American embassy and all of you.
Leo Ryan is murdered by Jones' gunman as he is preparing to leave. So is journalist Don Harris. Within hours, Jones orders his followers to come to the community center to kill themselves. And they do. The final death toll is 911. Most of them drank an exotic mixture of cyanide, a tranquilizer, and Kool-Aid. Entire families took the poisonous concoction together. Some of them lay down, embracing, others holding hands. Jim Jones, their god, took his own life with a gun. A member of the Guyana Crime Commission, Skip Roberts.
There's some of them that died after others had little blankets thrown over them to cover them, and they all seemed to arrange themselves comfortably. Jim Jones' wife was lying on a blanket right next to him, the steps, and she's very peacefully lying with her hand outstretched. Some of them who had girlfriends were lying with their girlfriends, their arms around each other and that sort of thing.
The empty bottles that had contained potassium cyanide and tranquilizers are grim enough, but the evidence of so-called religion and a strange sort of love are even worse. There's now little room for doubt about the dangers of cults. This one, at least. The plane carrying the bodies of the first Jonestown victims arrives in San Francisco. The body of Representative Leo Ryan is carried from the Air Force plane by a military honor guard. 3 of Ryan's children, his first wife, campaign aides, and staff watch as the metal casket, covered by an American flag, is carried to a hearse. Late summer, 1978. A beach in southern France. A boy, a girl. He's coming over. He looks. She's drowsing. He wonders. Why, it's Maggie Trudeau.
The decision to make this movie was made so fast, and it was sort of, you know, help. Should I do it or shouldn't I do it? It would be a good experience for me to do a romantic comedy. It would be very nice to be in the south of France. Pierre thinks it would be very good for me to learn French, you know, really well, because the children now are starting to learn French, and I'm really going to be left out in the family if I'm the only non-French speaking person.
J'ai tout compris.
Compris quoi?
Compris que votre conscience amène à assumer un peu trop à mon goût votre héritage animal.
Mais c'est l'un des meilleurs moyens pour arriver au samadhi.
Je suis sûre qu'il doit y avoir d'autres moyens, plus spirituels.
La satisfaction de l'esprit passe avant tout avec Pardon.
This time he blew his lines. It certainly was his turn. Meantime, the world, well, Canada at least, is awaiting publication of Maggie's tell-all or mostly all book. It's not to be released until next April, but it's already on the presses, and it's expected to bring in $1 million or more in sales and serial rights. Some suggest the title, Beyond Reason, describes the entire Maggie affair.
And I like to chop it up into thirds. The third of the people hate what I do, and a third of the people love what I do, and a third of the people just couldn't give a damn what I do.
Some of the people of California are mad as hell, and they aren't going to take it anymore. The Pied Piper who leads them flutes a tune with words like, cut taxes by 57%. His name is Howard Jarvis. He and another retired businessman lead a statewide campaign calling California's tax system grand felony theft. The campaign is going nowhere when Jarvis gets a break. The 400,000 homeowners of Los Angeles County get their tax bills. They are up, an average of 120%. The revolt is on. Voters passed Proposition 13 by a huge margin. Jarvis, exultant, plans a nationwide campaign.
I am forming the American Tax Reduction Movement for the United States. This committee will organize taxpayers throughout this nation, help finance campaigns for tax reform, and lobby at the national level for tax reductions for the ordinary run-of-the-mill American taxpayers from Maine to California.
The message of Jarvis is very definitely curb these homeowner taxes and slow in a very substantial way the growth in government.
The effect of Proposition 13 is to reduce the budget the state has to spend by $7 billion.
And I am not going to raise state taxes. I am going to seek a lid and a limit on both state and hopefully local spending as well. And we will try to manage in the most human, sensitive, but thoughtful way that we can.
We have districts that will have to cut back at least 60%, some 50. The average is 35. Whenever you make those kind of cutbacks in education, which is people-dominated, 80% of the school's expenditure is in personnel. Now, when you have to make those drastic cutbacks, you're not talking about giving up paper clips and scratch paper and pencils. You're talking about people. And when you're talking about people, you're talking about teachers. And when you lay off teachers, it means your class sizes will get larger, less individual attention, maybe double sessions, and a drastic lowering of the quality of the education for the children.
A new day in California. The New Jersey town made famous by monopoly is having money troubles. Nearly deserted by today's fun lovers, city fathers try a new approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Resorts International, otherwise known as Las Vegas East.
Casino gambling is approved by the voters overwhelmingly, and it's a new world. Down come old apartments and homes as real estate operators gobble up property for more casinos. The fast gambling players are at the tables. The really big operators, as in Monopoly, are out buying a property. In the Parkers Brothers game, everyone starts with an equal chance. Not so in real Atlantic City, where some start poorer. With legalized gambling, it seems, the poor get poorer and the rich richer. And in Monopoly, when you tear down houses to put up hotels, there are no poor people around to make it messy.
I want to get out of here as soon as possible. It's not human to live in this place anyway. You can't have no babies running around a place that look like this. Got rats running around here. It don't make no sense.
Every day they show about the boardwalk, the casino, the good parts of Atlantic City. Won't they show now about how we're living here on the north side?
I voted for casino gambling, and the way I feel now, they haven't done nothing for me.
We've been all over to help them to try to get us relocated. And the repercussion of that, we haven't gotten nowhere at all. We're like stuck on an island, and it's sinking.
I've been living here about eight months. 4 children and myself. And I cook on a hot plate. And it takes about 2 to 3 hours to cook a decent meal. And I have no place to put a refrigerator because of the clothes. So I have to go to the store every day to buy food. Well, it's hard.
Free parking? Not in today's Atlantic City. Try it and you'll likely end up going to jail without passing go. The newcomers came here to take a chance. Others came to retire and soak up the sun, breathe in the salt air.
The purpose of the gambling was to rejuvenate a city. The city was going down a drain. They told them that the senior citizens would benefit, and instead they wanted to put the senior citizens out of the ball game altogether.
We came here 4 years ago. We tried it. We liked it. We went home and we sold our home 2 years ago, and we figured this was it. And now when we have to get out, we just don't know where we're going to go and what we're going to do.
We are being forced out.
I lived here as a child. I went to school here. And my whole life, I thought we'd come here when we got older and retire here. And now, I don't know what we're going to do. We're lost. We don't know what we're going to do.
The whir of the wheel.
Next time, Chi-Town, lead about the money.
The rattle of the dice. The click of the chips. The riffle of the cards. The noise drowns out the voices of the disenfranchised. Jackpot. But the biggest gambler of the year is in Washington, D.C.
He told me that he got the money from gambling, which is a lot of money to win for gambling.
And I just decided that a change was needed. So I changed it.
We went to settlement on a house, of which he paid cash for. Everybody sort of looked at us like, you know, what is he doing with $60,000? So he tells me to go to Wilson Powell and pick out a car. I thought, well, this is just silly because we don't have any money, you know. So to humor him, I went out to pick a car up, and he paid for it right there.
5 Lincolns involved there in less than 6 weeks.
I had the original Mark V that I bought. I had the Mercedes 450 SEL. I had a Mark V convertible and a town car convertible. The other cars they seized were Mercedes 450 SL for my sister, Versailles for my wife, Versailles for my mother, a Mark V from a friend of mine, and a station wagon from her mother, a Datsun from a guy that I went into a business with, and a Dodge Diplomat from my wife's mother.
All cars paid for in cash.
Altogether, I think there were 11 or 12 cars bought.
Brown leather coat, dark brown coat, 3-piece suit.
Rather than have 3 suits to wear for the week, I could change twice a day if I wanted. Never hit on the same one.
I'm in the man's gold vest chain, single diamond pendulum.
Color TV, I think there were 13. A friend of mine that went to Vegas with me, I think they took 7 color TVs out of her house. One from her grandmother in Indianapolis.
He opened several bank accounts for his girlfriend valued at approximately $29,000.
Lone Star Beef House has been there 31 years. So I paid $75,000 cash for it and put $5,000 operating capital into it. The clientele there is mostly FBI.
Jewelry, stocks, bonds, furniture valued at just thousands upon thousands of dollars.
I actually admit to taking $856,916.57.
He's not a dishonest person. He wouldn't have done... He was under a lot of pressure because he was working 3 jobs when he did this.
When all this happened, I was at GS5 making $9,900, I think it's $86 a year.
Oh, I was pretty happy about the money.
I think the day the first check was May 1977. In the bank, I asked him how long did it take a treasury check to clear, and he told me it was good on the spot. So I told him, okay, in that case, give me, I forget how much it was, somewhere around $20,000 cash. Put the rest in the bank, and he did it.
I know he's smart, but I didn't think he... I didn't really think he could dream up something like that.
One day, it seems, Bill Seibert just took a box of blank government checks home with him and filled in his name.
There was really no determination of, you know, how much money it was going to be involved on the check, whatever keys hit the typewriter.
And he mentioned to me that that he had hired the penthouse in Caesar's Palace that weekend, that he was on his way to Vegas.
We immediately got on the telephone to our Las Vegas office.
And when we landed in Vegas, the plane took about 5 minutes just jockeying back and forth at the door, you know, while the Secret Service and everybody grouped up to it, you know.
Approximately $57,000 in currency was recovered.
I was carrying $59,000, 57 of it in a brown lunch bag. And And then they started tracing back some of the checks that I wrote to different people, and they went around telling everybody, well, you got to give stuff back here and there.
We have accounted for most of the money, but we can't account for $80,000.
The stuff that was bought doesn't lose its value that much. I mean, the cars will lose some. The house will appreciate. The club is not going to lose any value.
I hope that people don't get a bad impression of him because he did this. I mean, I don't.
The government doesn't really have any system to stop anything like this from being done. In fact, somebody might be doing it.
Seibert goes to jail. He does not pass go. He does not collect $200. In fact, he forfeits his $856,000. 1978. That's the way it goes.